Hi, this is Jim Moyna and welcome. Hey, today I'm going to explain the term saddle. Saddle is a term often used by structure fishermen that are fishing deeper water and deeper structure, and I have diagrammed it out right here. Okay, this pink area on these black lines are contours. Okay, so this pink area is what I'm calling the saddle right there. Okay, and saddles are absolute fish magnets. They're magnets for largemouth bass, for smallmouth bass, walleye, crappie, rock bass. I mean, you name it. Muskies. Muskies love these things. Um, Pretty much you name it, and that fish will show up there at some point in time. Now, I'm from Minnesota, so I kind of drew out something I might find in a natural lake here in Minnesota. But you can find saddles in just about any, body of water, significant body of water, whether it's a reservoir or a natural lake. All right, so let's just explain what's going on here. Okay, I got this labeled deep basin, so this is really deep water out here. This is not where you can be finding the fish. Same thing with over here, deep basin. Now, let me just back up once. I forgot to mention, a saddle like this is key pretty much after the spawn. So, like in Minnesota, a lot of our bass are done spawning by early June, mid-June, and I would expect these saddles to start heating up sometime maybe late June, early July, and they just get better and better until and they're good right into the fall. Once it gets really cold again in late fall, then it's really hit and miss, as are a lot of patterns that are lakes sometimes in Minnesota in late fall. But anyways, so deep basin. Then here we got a deep weed flat, okay? Deep weed flat. Now in this case, I've got the weed line at 10 feet. So these weeds quit growing at 10 feet. Okay, so this area in the middle here, where the saddle is, that's deeper than 10, but it's going to be shallower than the 15, okay, which is the next contour out. All right, and this will be like a flat area. Okay, it comes down. It just gradually comes down off of that weed point on each side, and it's just a little bit deeper, and the sun doesn't penetrate that extra couple feet, so the weeds don't grow there. And the fish, I'm telling you, the fish love this kind of stuff. Here, just to give you an example of the size, here I drew a little tiny boat. So saddles can be any varying size there. You can have, this can be 20 feet across, or it can be 100 feet across, or even more. The closer these two weed points come together, the easier it is to target the sweet spot. Because if you got a really tight saddle, the sweet spot's going to be within casting range. Whether you cast to the left or right, you're going to be able to hit it. But if you are on a saddle that is 100, 150 feet across, then it can be a little more dicey as to where the sweet spots. Or there might be multiple sweet spots. There might be a rock clump. There might be a rock clump position somewhere on there that really is a magnet, and then over towards one of the weed points, another rock clump. So that can be, it's just a little harder on a bigger saddle. Sometimes that sweet spot can be a little harder to find. But oftentimes it's very close to it's right there, right close to these the weed edges. Another thing is I want to point out is I intentionally drew these contours to be really close right here on the right side of the saddle, and I intentionally drew them to be more spaced out. That's because I want to explain to you that when you are looking for the sweet spot on the saddle, most of the time it's going to be somewhere along this steeper break of the saddle. It's not going to be over here on the gradual side of it. It's going to be over on the steeper side. So that's where you want to kind of focus most of your attention. There will be fish that will stray over in here. They're generally not as many. So that's just something to keep in mind. Let's see, what else? Just in summary, just when you're talking about a saddle, basically, just to summarize, it's two flat underwater points that are coming together, and there's maybe a little bit of depression in between them. In the case of Minnesota lakes, with where we have a lot of weed beds, my favorite saddles are the ones where that depression gets just a little too deep, and the sun can't penetrate down there to grow the weeds. And throwing some rocks in there, awesome, especially the smallies. A saddle like this is really good if you got a few nice rocks in there for them smallies. But regardless, even if it's just gravel, you can get smallies there. And of course, it's very good for largemouth too. Just to give you an example, a couple of my biggest wins in my career have come off of saddles. Back in 1995, back in the 90s, there was a tournament called the Don Shelby U.S. Open, and that was held on Lake Minnetonka, which at the time I was out there quite often. And I won in 1995. I won that tournament, and it was on this very type of situation. And I caught it was a 3-day tournament. All 15 of the fish I caught, I caught 14 of the 15 fish off of one saddle. It was that good. That's the kind of magnet these places are. And then a couple of years later, in 97, when I won the FLW Forest Wood Open out there, one of my key spots again, I caught fish. That was a 4-day event, and I caught fish all over the lake in that tournament. But one of the biggest fish I weighed was right on one of these deals. And the reason why I didn't catch more for that particular... Now, it wasn't the same spot as the 95 tournament. It was a different saddle in the lake, on Lake Minnetonka. And the only reason why there weren't more fish there is because it was a June tournament, and the fish just hadn't gotten out there yet. I did catch the biggest one of the 4 days out on that deal, but it would have been even better a month later for sure. So... anyways, look for these saddles, and they're really easy to find on your lake maps. I mean, with the mapping we have today, I use the Lowrance mapping with the C map and that. With the mapping we have today, it's just really easy to pick out these areas. Especially if you already know the depth of the weeds in that lake. Just knowing that, then you just look at the contours that are just right at that level or just beyond, and then just use your eyeballs to find them. It's really easy. So keep those in mind. Great summer, early fall type of spots. A little more spotty outside of that season, but check those babies out because they will pay off often. Over.